So good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Namaste and a very warm welcome to all of you to the Blub World Web Talks 187th episode. Thank you so much everyone for joining in. In the last 186 episodes, we have talked to, interacted with nearly 3,000 plus school leaders from all across the world, where they have shared with us the ideas, the innovations, and what all new are they doing in the education space. तो नमस्कार, आप सभी का स्वागत है ब्लब वर्ल्ड वेब टॉक्स के 187वें एपिसोड में। पिछले 186 एपिसोड में हमने करीबन 3000 से ज्यादा स्कूल लीडर से बातचीत की और ये जानने समझने की कोशिश की कि शिक्षा कैसे बदल रही है और वो शिक्षा को कैसे बदल रहे हैं। So again, today we have an interesting topic to talk to you and try to know from you that how is education evoluting, and rather than just education, how is the learner evoluting, and how are things around him changing, and how does he perceive the world around him. Thank you so much once again for all the speakers for joining us today. Let's know from you that what are the changes and the challenges in educating 21st century learners. जो 21वीं सदी के learners हैं, जो अभी सुपर हाई टेक बच्चे हैं, जो सुपरबली टेक savvy हैं, इनको पढ़ाने में, इनको कोई चीज समझाने में क्या क्या चैलेंजेस आते हैं और कौन कौन से बदलाव आपको करने पड़ रहे हैं रोजमर्रा की अपनी स्कूलिंग या स्कूल के प्रोसेस में. लेट्स नो इट फ्रॉम यू. एंड कौन से ऐसे आइडियाज हैं जो आपसे दूसरे बहुत सारे स्कूल्स सीख सकते हैं, एम्यूलेट कर सकते हैं या रेप्लिकेट कर सकते हैं. थैंक यू सो मच. बट बिफोर वी स्टार्ट, जस्ट 2 ground rules. First, the Blub World Web Talks is a timed platform. So once your speaking time is over, you might get muted. If you get muted, please don't get offended. It's just to keep the activity interesting and engaging for everyone. Put your best foot forward and speak like a sprint, not like a marathon. And secondly, this is a bilingual platform, so you can use English or Hindi, any of these 2 languages. If you want to use a third one, you can, but I won't get it. So try using either English or Hindi, and I hope we enjoy the next 60 minutes with you, trying to know from you what are the changes and challenges in educating the 21st century learners. To initiate this topic, let me invite the first speaker for today. He'll bring in the higher education perspective and what happens to a child when they actually get into higher education, and what kind of a feed does higher education institutions get. So a very warm welcome to Dr. Shoury Kuttapa, the Academic Manager and Counselor, Office of the Chairman of Admissions and Outreach for Amrita Vidyapeetham, Coimbatore, Tamil Nadu. Dr. Shoury, over to you for the next 3 minutes. Please unmute yourself and a very warm welcome.
I'm just hoping and praying my video has been restored. Thank you so much, Blub World. And yes, on the things that we're seeing around higher education around this time are, I think, 2 things which seem to be on the top of my list. One is customization, and number 2 is sort of customization of content. One. Second, number 2 is the access to learning, learning from anywhere kind of a thing. Let me elaborate a little bit. When I say customization of content, it means today learning is slowly moving into an area where we need to have customized content, not just for a class of students, but somewhere we need to have customized content for individual students in a class as well. Or thanks to technology, which has made it possible. You can look at your myriad of things that are available today, right up from Udemy to, Byju's to all over, all over the spectrum. The fact that learning has become customized right up to individual perspective, and this is sort of turned in the last 2 years. Until about 2 or 3 years ago, most of our learning was, content was customized right up to a class. We can have a class of students of at least 25 to 30 who are doing very well. Therefore, they have a different kind of tuition or a different kind of professor addressing it. Class of 25, 30 who is not doing so well. Therefore, you have a different kind of professor or a different kind of student, etc., etc., etc. So that's one thing that's, impacting learning today. Number 2, at least in the higher education, the ability to learn from anywhere. Whatever content you create, whatever class, this thing, etc. One thing seems to be on top of the list is that the learner should be able to consume it at his or her pace from almost anywhere. Like, for example, I am now shuttling between my wife and my mother's houses. and I am able to actually, disseminate something from right in the middle of the road. Yeah. So therefore, the learner itself is expecting that, whenever I am somewhere in the middle of something, I should be able to attend a class, submit an assignment, uh, be part of a practical session on, challenges, etc., from virtually anywhere that I am, and virtually on any time at my convenience. So I think these two things are sort of not just challenges, but are changes that are sort of spearheading a lot of things. Yeah. Having said that, I'm afraid there are so many positives about our initial classroom sort of a model. Therefore, you can't really say, no, we will not have a classroom anymore. It's the sort of interpersonal, benefits that a classroom can provide. I'm afraid we have not found a replacement for that yet. How am I on time, Daksh? Have I? Uh, Thank you. Thank you.
You have some more time. You can speak.
No, these are two things which I wanted to, sort of spearhead at the top of the things. I think the third point, which can be also brought in here, is the assessment angle of it. Because now that the 21st century learner is, sort of evolving like this, therefore the assessments, we've heard a lot of challenges from schools where, online exams, online assessment are sort of nullified. Therefore, even the top ranker versus the bottom ranker have all got the same kind of marks. Some institutions, organizations are refusing to accept students who have, sort of attended exams in a particular year batch because they feel the exams, etc., were not relevant. So therefore, the assessment has to be of a form that, then supports the 21st century learners. I'm afraid we can't use 18th century assessment for 21st century, 19th century assessment for 21st century sort of a technology supported learning, this thing. So I think that is the third angle which, strikes, if I were to say three things on top of my list. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shoury, sir. And I think the important points that you mentioned, who I say essential, now they're kind of essential to the complete ecosystem, the way it is changing. The first is super hyper personalization, that you need to get into the level of an individual. There is no, mode of where only a customization can happen up to a class level or to even a cluster level. Now it has to come individualized on the basis of the individual and the kind of taste and preferences that he has. And second, learning from anywhere and everywhere, rather. We want super flexibility in the sense of geographical space. Now we don't want to be within that foundation that if I am in a physical classroom, only then I am ready to learn. There are benefits tied to it that we all hope that you learn in a physical classroom. But yes, now this is a freedom that we have tasted and we don't want to leave it. So we now need to think on these lines, that can we make content super customized, and can they get absolute geographical flexibility? Now, when we talk of higher education, these might be a possibility. But with school education, when we have passive learners, can this actually happen? Should this be imagined? Should this not be imagined? Let's try to know it from the school leaders, that do they think that are these changes acceptable? And I would not rather use the word acceptable. These are forced upon. Are you ready for it, or are students ready for it? Let me invite the first school leader for today to share their perspective on changes and challenges in educating the 21st century learner. Mrs. Harsimran Kaur Kapany, the head of school from Bloomingdale International School from Vijayawada, Andhra Pradesh. Harsimran ma'am, over to you for the next 3 minutes. Please unmute yourself, and a very warm welcome.
Thank you so much, Daksh, and a warm welcome to all of you. It's lovely to be there on the same platform for all these leaders with so much of experience along, and also all those who are listening to us today. It's very right when we say personalized learning, learning everywhere, mobile learning. All these are definitely there. We see the trends, but I'm going to go back a little bit, because when I'm looking at the school education, it's more as mindsets. The change has to happen with the mindset, is what I believe in. Supposing if I start with a question, how many of you got up today morning with the thought that you will learn something new today? Not many do that. Very few actually, come to that. Again, when I say is, every time they say is 21st century skills, and that they come up with holistic learning, critical thinking, creativity, big words. But do we ever actually understand what exactly are there? Because we are always talking about these things, and everyone has their own definition for all these. If I put it there, like if I say, what else is education good for? It is to create the best minds in their respective fields. That's not far from truth. But like when we say is, according to Dr. Chency James, who's the former vice chancellor for the Mahatma Gandhi University, it said that the best in India will always be the best in the world when it comes to education. That's really true. It's very proud moment for all the teachers, students, facilitators, courts, etc. But let me, it also makes us to think, the best in India, is it the same as the Nobel laureates, athletes? Because they are best despite the education, or not because of it. So what is it that is required for us when we say, what is the point of education? We need to move forward from there, when I'm looking at it. I'll give you an example. Like, I studied integration and differentiation in my school as well as in college. But I never knew what I was learning, how to use, where I'm going to use it, unless I started teaching in the diploma program and also to become a coach for my own children. Let me give you another example on the same, when I say is, how it is there, the changing which is needed. My son, in his engineering college, there was a protocol that if a child is caught using a mobile phone, it will be confiscated and it will be given only once he graduates it. Pretty harsh, but that was it. But what happens is, yes, child, as you say, he will still use it. He still used it. He was caught. In 2011, he was caught with using his phone. He was given back the phone in 2014 when he graduated. But the thing is that Android phone was of no use to him, because how fast they change. The versions, they are all changing. It is the same, if I say is that the same is. So in the same way, when I'm looking at teaching the students, when we're doing the same thing with the students, all for the retention of information without fully appreciating the understanding, the absorbing of it, they're also going to be the same way, like outdated, like that mobile phone in the principal's office. So then what exactly are we looking at when we say is the holistic learning? I'm going to come to another one, that the way we learn has also gone through quite a bit, when the pandemic was there. Learning outcomes, there is a lot of learning levels which we find in our classrooms. Industry says that instead of all this, we require a right mindset, a right attitude is there for employability as they are growing up. More than anything, they are asking for a trainable mindset is what they are asking for. How do we build that trainable mindset is the question. Now, to get that, we also have the one is the creativity we talk about. Creativity, in the 21st century, it is a very important skill. But what it is not about the chaos or instability, which are, there, but it is about making a mistake, then learning from it, then again making there making mistakes later on, and then going further for it, but learning from those mistakes and carry on. But are we taught to make those mistakes? We are not. Then how are we going to be creative? So these are the challenges which we face, though we want them to grow, but how? So we need to think as educators, we need to think.
Thank you so much, Harsimran, ma'am. That yes, we need to tell them that how do they need to grow. We cannot just keep asking them that you should be growing, keep learning new stuff. It cannot be that redundant cliche statements. It has to be a more structured, more simplified, and easy to apply solution that can be given to children. So what you started with was mindset change is the foundation of the technology changes that they're experiencing. The biggest problem that most of the schools face when we talk of K-12 is they get a lot of resistance for any change that they want to bring into the system, because everyone from a school, the expectation is quite low. But once the child grows, that becomes a high stake engagement for the school. So basically, you traverse from the journey where the parent typically does not want to take care of the school and eventually being super careful about the school. So that journey is a roller coaster ride in itself for any institution. And during that, if you want to do a change, it becomes an altogether another challenge. So you talked about trainable mindset in the future workforce. When we want to, develop somebody who's trainable, who's ready to listen, and most importantly, when that's a teenager who does not want to listen to anything, it becomes more and more challenging. So we have passive learners who are rigid. How do you teach them to be trainable? This is the challenge, I think, that the school education ecosystem faces. Thank you so much, ma'am. Let me invite the next speaker for today, Mrs. Manisha Johri, the principal of Asnani School from Bhopal, Madhya Pradesh. Manisha, ma'am, over to you. Please unmute yourself and a very warm welcome.
Yeah, good evening, everybody, and thank you, Blub World, for having me in this discussion. Yes, I would just like to start from what Dr. Shoury said. He said learning from anywhere and everywhere. Now, that could be possible for higher education, but when it comes to school education, this is a challenge which the educators are facing because the kids have got information overload, and it becomes the duty of the educator to help the child understand how to filter information that's available to him, choose the right and leave the wrong. So that I feel is one of the biggest challenges that we are facing over here. And as Harsimran ma'am said, that we need to change from fixed mindset to growth mindset. With AI and other technology coming in, most of the jobs are being handed over to machines. And our children, if they are not lifelong learners, they are going to face huge problem because it's an ever-changing world now. Pandemic has showed us that nothing is certain. Everything is so volatile, so ambiguous, so uncertain that if we don't equip our children to, handle uncertainty, if we don't equip our children to handle disappointments and failures, then it's going to be very, very tough for them in future. The other thing that I would say over here is like we have seen with the war going on, how the prices are shooting up, resources are depleting. And when this generation grows up, there's going to be a huge crunch if we don't teach them how to take care of the resources now. The other thing that we need to change, we face challenges that we want to teach them financial responsibility. In India, training children for financial responsibilities, parents never want the child to know about the financial situation at home. They think that it is none of the child's business. But I think for 21st century learners, it's very important that we educators train them to be financially literate, to understand the responsibility where finances are concerned. The third thing, after pandemic, we have seen that kids have a lot of emotional baggage, They have seen loss loss of a dear one. They have seen financial losses at home, and they don't know whom to reach out to and whom to talk to. So now it's a duty of an educator, the people at school, to see that they are able to, cater to their emotional well-being, come up with ideas like sports and arts. I think CBSE is doing it in a big way, and rightfully, because 21st century learners have to be focused. They have so much around them that they're losing focus. I remember a case of a child. We have a career counseling center in school. Now, after every summer break, we have teachers coming up with study hall where they inform the children about the various career options available if they study a particular subject. Now, I had a child who's, every day this child would change his career option. One day he wanted to be a fashion designer, the next day he wanted to be a CA. So, somewhere we need to help children focus and understand what is their being and what they want in future. And last but not the least, driving in the values. Because school can only nurture what the parents instill. But unfortunately, parents are so busy that even to instill values, it is left upon us as educators. So that I feel is also a challenge with the educators. And we are coming up, CBSE is also helping us with that. And Okay, thank you. I was right on time.
Thank you so much, Manisha, ma'am. The important points that we shared, I'll try to summarize them. Information curation is a very big challenge. We don't know that what kind of content should go to the child, and is it being filtered? Is somebody seeing that, or should the child himself be seeing that? Because I think a very essential skill that we miss in the complete teaching learning process is that we need to make, inculcate wisdom in the child. He should be taught the core meaning of the word knowledge, knowing your ledge. Where do you stand? Building that wisdom is something that we totally forget in academics, and we're not even able to define that whether this comes in academics or this comes in value education, whose responsibility is to inculcate wisdom, because that's something that's majorly missing in the complete curriculum. And this is what we are typically trying to ask from the child in different ways. And I think most of the educationists are, I would not say articulate enough, but I think there's some challenge there in the curriculum development that wisdom does not get inculcated. And now wisdom is something that is super essential, because we need them to be the curators. Since we are giving them all the control, the student now has to be the curator. He must be able to understand that, okay, this is something that I need to cut off, and this is something that I need in my life. So we need the intelligence of an adult in a child, and that's to be done by the school. So that's a lot of responsibility coming on your shoulders. Financial responsibility, handling uncertainty, losing focus. I think you gave an example where the student was changing careers, options every day. I think I would rather agree with the child here, because we do not give them a lot of options. When we're talking about career guidance, I think it should not be guidance. It should be career experiences. Let them have small, bite-sized packets of careers. Let them have a bite of the career. Okay, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do. Once they taste everything, then let them choose what they want to do. Thank you so much, ma'am. Let me invite the next speaker for today, Dr. Manjari Tejpal, the principal of James Public School from Patiala, Punjab. Manjari, ma'am, over to you for the next 3 minutes. Please unmute yourself, and a very warm welcome.
Thank you so much, Daksh. Thank you for inviting me on this platform, and it was wonderful listening to all the views. And through the conversation, I mean, it also triggered a train of thoughts in myself as well. And as our earlier speaker said, this 21st century, this particular time is posing great challenges to us as educators, because the things have completely changed. The way education is provided is being changed. You never know when things will go online. The way technology has been included in the system. And the other thing, the major problem which I think we're facing is the mindset of teachers and parents. Children have a whole lot of opportunities. But how that information is to be passed on to children is a difficult task, because the information is not to be passed just as is given in a written form. It is to be passed on to children in more usable form, which has to be structured, which has to be interesting for children, because if it is not interesting, children shut you down. Now the remote control of learning is in the hands of children also. They can decide whether they want to learn from you or they don't want to learn from you. When they were in online classes, they would turn off cameras, they'll mute yourself, they'll go away from the room. The reason was not that they didn't want to learn. The reason was whatever you were informing them, maybe there's a lot which is already is with them through internet as information, as books, and the information being passed is not done in an interesting way. So this is one challenge. As teachers, as school leaders, we need to introspect and look into the ways that how we can make education or learning more interesting. It cannot be just the information. Earlier, it was taken as information and we were feeding our children. We were giving them the information. But now, information is available everywhere, just on your fingertip. And children are smarter than us. They know things much more than what we know as a teacher. Then another thing is, with this kind of education and the availability of information, the assessment is also posing a problem. As one of our speakers said, that even the companies, they talk about it that during this phase, if you have passed out, they'll not recruit you because they know how the assessment went. Even as school leader, I also know how the assessment went. So we have to make more practical assessment, where it should be more of open book assessment. Give them the book, but the question should be in a manner that it is application based. Children will have to think, they'll have to find a way, they'll have to analyze, evaluate. We will automatically come down to these 21st century skills, building of 21st century skills, if the question papers would be of like this. Daksh, I was working with ICFI University around 15-16 years ago. वहाँ पर जो आपका टेस्ट होता था, that was all objective questions. Even if you have the book, it doesn't matter. बच्चे के पास अगर बुक भी है, वो पेपर जरूरी नहीं है वो कर सकता, because it was 100% application based. 100%. There would be small short, each question was a case, and child will have to find out what concept will apply over there. So if you have those kind of assessment systems, I think this problem whether children are cheating or they have availability of resources and information will not affect. So this is here we need to change. Moreover, I think now education, and as educators, even as parents, we need to think our children towards sustainability. I believe that we need to inculcate these we need to incorporate our education with United Nations sustainable development goals, because education is not about information. Education is about changing your attitude, changing your mindset, and is also about changing how you accept the world, and how you help the world grow and stay well and healthy. That's important. I mean, Indian mindset अगर हम देखें दक्ष, तो हमेशा से बड़ा sustainable रहा है. हमारे यहाँ वो आज के टाइम में जोक की तरह यूज होता है, but it is a fact. Our toothbrush would be used as a toothbrush, then as a cleaning thing, and then something else, and it will continue. Once a toothbrush is there in your household, it will stay there. So that, what was that? That was sustainability. We say कि oceans में पॉलिथीन हमने नहीं फेंके, क्योंकि हमारे तो सारे पॉलिथीन गद्दों के नीचे मिलते हैं, अलमारियों के पीछे मिलते हैं. This is what sustainability is. We need to make our children understand that this is recycle, reuse of things. If we are able to inculcate this thing in our children, they would be able, they certainly will respect the resources available with them. They will understand that there's scarcity of resource and they have to use these prudently. Another thing I feel, that as you know, the control is in the hands of children. So teachers will have to ensure that learning, I think I'll just close it, that whatever learning happens, it should be it should be child oriented, not teacher oriented. Thank you, Daksh. I think I've closed it within 3 minutes.
Thank you so much, Manjari ma'am. I'll try to summarize what you said. Most importantly, I think a very important point was information has to be made utility driven, it has to be made utilizable, because as we all know, education, it was basically information transfer, because that's what we know. We all focused on memorization. Now it has completely changed. The child controls the learning, and you need to, enhance the content that you already have. Second-hand content makes the student disinterested. Now, I'm calling it second-hand content because, for a simple reason, the child already knows that. He has seen the movie, the trailer the trailer of whom you are releasing in your class. So that's something that's old news for him. You need to get him new news in the classroom. Assessments went absolutely out of track. We all are in a challenge because we now, are on a track where we want to judge the child's ethics. Let's not judge his ethics. Find more ways to judge his ability, because this ethical judgment won't do the right assessments. Whether you put AI into it, whether you put whatever into it, but sorry, I think that's not the right track to go when we talk of assessments. Application-based assessment has to come in open book, has to be an essential part of examination now. It has to focus on your analytical skills. It cannot be based on information anymore. Sustainability needs to be added to the lifestyle of the child. It is a behavioral change. I would not say that the activity part of it. This is absolute application. This should not be taught. It should be experienced. Otherwise, sustainability does not percolate down. And I think two very good examples, the toothbrush versatility, which is very important, and the second one, the polythene bag sustainability model, where Indians have been storing polythenes everywhere, every single nook and cranny within their homes. So this is something that needs to be taught to the world, that keep saving the bags that you have. Thank you so much, ma'am. Let me now invite somebody who will add in a managerial or an administrative perspective to the discussion, because he has been handling change and challenges at a scale. He has many schools to operate. He has a chain of schools to operate. So how does he think that are these changes able to percolate? Are we able to assist these changes, or are we able to resist these changes? Let's try to understand From our next speaker for today, a very warm welcome, Mr. S.K.Rathor, the founder and chairman and the managing director for the Sanford Group of Schools from Noida, Uttar Pradesh. Rathor sir, over to you for the next 3 minutes. Please unmute yourself and a very warm welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much, Daksh, for inviting me. And I'm so sorry I was late in joining because of some technical issues. So I'm listening all the speakers, previous speakers. So changes and challenges are not in 21st century. Every century would be there, and it was earlier also. And changes are necessity of the time also. We need to change. See, before pandemic, I used to say whenever I'm a parenting coach also. So whenever I'll used to take a parenting session, I always say, parents, don't give mobile phone to your child. So my thought is now changed. I just had a parenting session 2 days back, and I said, give limited access to the mobile phone to your child. So now the things is changed. So what everybody have seen during 2 years of the pandemic, we can have a sustainable life. We can work, we can learn, we can stay at very less facilities. But as far as knowledge is concerned, as far as assessment, what earlier speaker was saying, as far as technology, use of technology in the education and everything is concerned, I just wanted to say, see, we need to create an environment, because everything comes after the environment has created. We need to create environment. We need to make our children understand at the early stage, as early as we would be able to make our children understand what is the role of education in their life, what should be the outcome of the education. Everybody talks, and whenever we go to any seminar or webinar or any conference, we talks very high. But what is the use of education? This need to be understood, because after spending some 20 years of the young age of the child, what is the outcome? Outcome would be that we are investing our life, and we should be employable. We should be good citizen of the society. So in my schools, what I say is to my principals and parents, we create a group of people from the parents group only. There must be a very close association with the between the teacher and parents at the primary school level itself, so that we can understand the psychology of the child, make them understand how to learn, and create an environment. We need to have an experiential kind of learning, not rote learning or assessment. What ma'am was saying, application should be there. So whatever a child is learning or studying in a physics subject, suppose, so what is the application of the physics? Optics पढ़ रहा है, तो optics की application कहाँ होगी? वो आगे जाके optics का use क्या करेगा? I have learned classical mechanics in my grade 12, but I don't feel कि कहाँ उसको apply करूँ मैं. तो ये changes बहुत required हैं कि application कहाँ होगी. Whatever I have learned in my physics studies, I could see. Whatever I have learned in history, I need to understand why I am studying history and where I have to apply it. So ये बहुत important है. Application is very important, one thing. And another thing, we as a teacher or educator, we need not to take all the challenges to ourselves. This is a inclusive kind of work. What teachers, parent, school, and community need to work together to bring the good outcome and bring the children, make them employable or good citizens or good professionals. तो पेरेंट्स को ये समझाना बहुत जरूरी है कि why engineering only, why doctors only. म्यूजिक में बच्चा अच्छा है तो म्यूजिक करेगा, वो डांस में अच्छा है तो डांस करेगा. तो आउटकम ऑफ द एजुकेशन शुड बी द good outcome will come only when the child is interested in learning those things. So what I feel and what I have started working in my schools, and we are getting very good response out of it. हमने एक छोटा सा एक ग्रुप बना दिया बच्चों का, जिसमें हमने उनको कहा कि आप अपना आइडिया लेकर आओ. तो आइडिया जब बच्चे लेकर आते हैं, तो वो जो आइडिया लाते हैं वो उनके इंटरेस्ट का होता है, और उस आइडिया को आप बच्चों को मोटिवेट करो उस आइडिया को मेटेरियलाइज करने के लिए. You should give the environment and get the consent from the parents also. अगर कोई social work में जाना चाहता है बच्चा, you can see in some musical program which is coming on Sony TV these days. There is a child who wanted to become a sant in the छोटा सा बच्चा है लेकिन उसकी वॉइस इतनी अच्छी है, he is in the competition. तो उस बच्चे पे अगर उसकी वॉइस पे काम किया जाता, उसके सिंगिंग पे काम किया जाता पेरेंट्स के द्वारा और okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I think again, aap jo baat kar rahe hain, career customization, and rather when you look at the trajectory of that child, you should be focusing on his understanding of things, not your understanding of things or your expectation from life. जो aapne baatein kahi, usme I think the important points come as no phone to little time on the phone, sustainability with technology. हमारी जो lifestyle उसमें technology अब घुस तो गई है. Now we need to build a timetable where technology also gets some time. Since we all went back to the basics, हमें ये सबको realize हो गया that we don't need a lot of money, we don't need a lot of things. What we need is a lot of focus. What we need is a lot of time being devoted in the right direction. Most importantly, we need to create an environment because learning has to happen. It cannot be forced. You cannot do learning. It has to happen. You have to give it that space so that it percolates on its own. And utility of education has to be established. I think every institution should follow this practice, that why are you educating, or why are you part of the process of education? This is a question that every single student, teacher, everyone in the complete ecosystem must answer every single day before they start the teaching learning process. It's very important because when we teach, we forget the utility of it. We do it because we have to do it. Let's not do because we have to do it. Let's do it because we want to do it. From that have to the want, there's a journey that you need to travel. Application first and theory second. Rather, it's the other way around when we talk of schools. So we need to find more ways of doing it. One of the ways is let them ideate, work on their ideas, and finally go ahead. We are also trying to do the same at the World Teen Parliament, getting a lot of students to do a lot of stuff. But we need to find more ways that are super easy and where student can do a lot of permutations so that he knows that, okay, these 5 things I know cannot be done. Let's go on the 6th thing. So thank you so much, Rathor sir. So we have listened to all the speakers for today. Let's have some closing thoughts from Dr. Shoury Kuttapa, and then we'll go to the open floor for taking the discussion to the next level. Shoury sir, over to you for the next 1 or 2 minutes for your closing thoughts.
Hello. With so many eminent speakers on the group, it's sort of humbling to be asked to conclude. Thank you so much. It was a real eye-opening, real pleasure. Very interesting to listen to everyone. If I may add, from the thoughts that I've been listening, if I may add, I think I have 2 points to add. One is, if I may indicate, I think a lot of us indicated towards the relationship aspect of teaching nowadays. Yeah, somehow we feel that the relationship aspect is lost. I think India and this particular subcontinent were pioneers in establishing the Guru-Chela relationship. Somewhere right from the Nalanda University, where this Guru-Chela relationship began, and I think that was the founding structure of the classroom model, which we have sort of merged into. The relationship between parents and teachers, the relationship between parents and students, the relationship between students and their grandparents, the interpersonal relationship of students with each other. Somewhere in all the learning battles, I think somewhere this key idea of developing a relationship is somewhere sort of getting lost behind. Maybe that's one of the triggers that is kind of indicating to all the challenges that are slowly cropping up in the 21st century. The mobile phone, therefore, relationships got diluted. I don't know, the kind of an assessment that happens, therefore relationship is diluted. A kind of a non-applicative kind of a learning, therefore relationship is diluted. So on and so forth. I think that somewhere has been the core of India or the Indian subcontinent's teaching pratha, if I may say, borrowing the leaf from the Gurukulam days, which somehow has got diluted, or I'm not saying it's completely out. I've been part of a lot of schools, institutions where there's a lot of focus on relationship, and that's lovely. The second aspect, I'm taking a leaf from the last speaker, the word or the concept of experiential learning. Somewhere experiential learning need not be restricted to, instead of talking about the parts of the flower, you just show the parts of the flower in a garden. I'm afraid that's not, experiential learning does not limit itself there. Yeah. How many of us know how we learn to ride a bicycle? Yeah? If you take your time back to the way you learned how to ride a bicycle, and if I may ask the question, which book did you read to learn how to ride a bicycle? We are all going to be scratching our heads, And the first thought, I've asked this in a group of teachers, I've asked this in a group of students as well. The first hands that are raised, the explanation is given, sir, my father, my brother, somebody put me on a bicycle and he pushed me. I fell down 3-4 times. I had bruised elbows. And then one day I finally got the hang of the balance. And then I started pedaling, and that's how I learned how to, And I asked him, yaar, where is that book that you read? He says, sir, there is no book. Where is the application kind of a thing? You have to learn cycle and then you have to learn to apply it. He said, no, sir, I just jumped into it and that's how it happened. And now I ride. And then I asked him this question, have you ridden a bicycle? Principles. When was the last time you rode a bicycle? Sir, 20 years back. And then the last question, have you forgotten how to ride a bicycle? No. Yeah. So these are two thoughts I felt I might just add, if permitted, as part of the conclusion. But I'm really humbled to be presenting the conclusion. Thank you, Daksh.
Thank you so much, Shoury, sir. And now it's an open floor for the next 5 to 7 minutes. If you want to add something more to the discussion, if your time was up and you were speaking something, so this is the time you can unmute yourself and speak it out. I think 2 important things that Shoury said, that one was the relationship aspect of teaching. I think India had a rather unfortunate journey where we had a very organic education system and we went into a totally inorganic education system, and now we want to bend it. I think we now need to either go back to the roots, start discussing or what, we don't know, but there is something that needs to be done so that it becomes organic and happens on its own, rather than we doing it or putting an effort to it. शायद उस कर्ता भाव से हटके दृष्टा भाव में जाना पड़ेगा. वो कैसे होगा? This is something that I think you'll know much better than me. So if you want to add something, you can unmute yourself and speak it out right now. It's an open floor for the next 2 minutes. Yes, Rathor sir, please.
What I believe, we school people, management rather, school promoters, school principals, and the parent need to understand now the time has come not to focus on the school result. CBSE का 99% कितना है, 100% कितना है, 98% कितना है, and what is the NEET result? कितने बच्चे NEET में select हुए हैं, कितने बच्चे IIT JEE में select हुए हैं. I think now the time has come when we need to understand the interest of the child and their skills also. कोई भी बच्चा वो IIT के एग्जाम में वही बच्चा बैठना चाहिए, उसी को तैयार करना चाहिए जो वास्तव में इंजीनियर बनने की इच्छा रखता है और उसकी स्किल सेट भी वैसा है. डॉक्टर के एग्जाम में वही बच्चा बैठना चाहिए. तो मेरा ऐसा बहुत ही स्ट्रांग बिलीव है, and I have started this practice in my schools, and I tell you this cannot be done overnight, because this is the psychology of the parent कि नहीं मेरे बच्चे को तो IIT ही कराना है, मुझे इंजीनियरिंग ही कराना है. So we can start from the grade 5-6 students. We can start counseling of their parents at this level. So whenever these children will come to grade 10, grade 11, 12, तो एक क्लैरिटी आएगी कि हाँ ये बच्चा है जो इंजीनियरिंग में जाना चाहिए, ये बच्चा है जो नीट के लिए बैठना चाहिए, और ये बच्चा है जो हिस्ट्री पढ़ेगा, या ये बच्चा है जो डांस करेगा. तो we need, this is the time we need to understand, we need to work according to the choice and interest and skills of the student, not what the parents are, thinking, what the school is thinking. So this is the only thing what I want to submit.
Yes, Harsimran, please.
I feel, what Mr. Rathor and Dr. Shoury said, it does make sense, because one is who's driving the learning. It should be the student driving the learning. Like when we say it is not what we learn, it is how we learn. It's more important for us. Like what Dr. Shoury said, relationships are very important. That was our core strength. We moved away from our core strength. our core strength was the relationships and how the teachers had that relationship. And I think so that made every one of us join those or connect those white dots which were there around, and how students used to connect those dots and make meaning out of all those different things, what they were learning. We need to go back to, or maybe just come back to what we are, go back to our roots maybe and see what we are. But yes, see that we are moving forward and not going back. That is more important for us, there. The teacher-student relationship is the most important aspect. Definitely it is there, because that is the driving force of motivation, for the students also to go forward, in life. So that's all from my side. Thank you.
Manjari ma'am, over to you.
I believe that we need to bridge this gap of old ecosystem and these upcoming changes, because the parents, though changes have all of a sudden have happened, technology has just entered the world, technology has entered the education system. Still the parents have the old mindset. It is difficult for them. It is very difficult to change that mindset. They're still sticking to the system of getting their children through these NEET or IIT exams. They're not understanding that skill is more important than anything else. So this is one important thing we need to do. We need to educate our parents. We need to have this very close connect with parents, so that we can, as schools, we can make them understand that what is important for children and how the future is changing, what kind of skills are required in their children, in their wards, so that they can become suitable for the world to come, because nobody knows how the world will look like. Whatever is there today, we never thought of it 2 years ago. I think COVID, if it with it COVID with it brought a lot of changes, and it completely changed our lifestyles. It completely changed number of thought processes, also number of systems, also the way we live, the way we survive. It changed everything. So this is one thing which I feel very strongly, the gap is to be bridged. It's only then we would be able to help our children, we would be help our society, nation, and hence the world.
Thank you so much, Manjari ma'am. I think we have also, Manisha, do you want to add something, or should we conclude?
Yeah, I was very intently listening to everybody, such wonderful thoughts. Just one thing, as Manjari ma'am just said, it's very difficult to convince parents. I remember a session, where we were telling parents about, let your child choose a career that, that there should be happiness in what the child does. To improve the happiness quotient in school. And then one parent said, okay, my child wants to become a sculptor, but how much would he earn? Will he be able to survive in what he earns? So how can you, ask my child to pursue his passion? Because I want to see my child well settled, ultimately he wants all the facilities in life. So these are some challenges, I think, if anybody can throw light on how to handle such questions.
So I think, Manisha ma'am, you've asked a very apt question, and this is what exactly we are trying to do at Blub World. We have started something which we call the career series, where we are doing it with a lot of higher education institutions and many other people, but we are not doing it as a career guidance session. We are not doing it as a one-way communication where one expert comes in and he just keeps speaking. We want these children to experiment with careers. We want them to taste that career, and most importantly, we need to understand that as a student, you won't be able to identify the exact career. You can identify the skill, you can identify your passion. Your career will get derived out of it. You cannot say that I'll be a sculptor and I'll make a lot of money out of it. You need to understand that how does that skill finally commercialize? And that's what we are trying to do through these sessions that we are doing, where we are trying to ask students that what do they think is their skill? What do they think is their passion? Identifying yourself is more important than identifying a career. And that activity we are calling career canvassing. That try to draw the life that you want to live. At least write down the expectations. Okay, this is the kind of lifestyle I want to have. And if you want to have that, how do you achieve that? Because at the end of the day, when we talk of career, it cannot be just passion. It cannot be just skill. It has to be a trade-off between passion, skill, commercialization, and money and life expectation. So the student has to get into this complexity but he has to be taken into this journey very delicately. So this is what we are exactly trying to do. We're keeping it slow, but we're trying to delve as deeper as possible into it. So thank you so much everyone for joining in. This was the 187th episode. Before this comes to an end, a very small story for all of you. Blub World does a very simple thing every month. We try to find out teenagers across the world who are doing superbly well in life and share their stories with many more teenagers. So one such story today for all of you. This story comes from a child who experienced some of the most adventurous challenges of her life, but overcame them and completed the ride, completed the challenge that she was facing. And she's somebody who achieved the unachievable, and at an age which was absolutely unimaginable. And that very lady was on the cover page of Blub World just some months back. And she is Zara Rutherford, who is the world's youngest female pilot to fly solo around the world. And this is what we do every single month, trying to find teenagers who are doing superbly well in life and share their stories with others for a very simple reason. You cannot teach the 21st century learner with 10th and 18th century stories. You need new stories. So keep finding them, keep talking to them. And thank you so much, everyone, for being a part of the Blub World Web Talks 187th episode. It was an amazing interaction with all of you. Thank you so much. Have an amazing evening ahead. Namaste.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.